Brett Hull, Court, Noel Campbell, Cujo, Jenny Oates, Brown, Chase, Jers, Zombo, Cecil, Butcher, Shanny, Tilly, Tuttle, Sutter, Twister, Turcotte, Kimball, Turgeon, Baron, Basson, Pronger, Pearson, Bergevin, Bozon, Al McInnes, Crab, Chuck, Howard, Chuck, Petrovicki, Pellerin, Dimitra, Yate, Corson, Conrad, Gretzky. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Louis, man. Got a cup near 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues.
Get on your feet. Here's your starting lineup for Toasted STL. Tom Franklin, the man called Wags, and Blues Fan Reacts.
And a fine evening to you here from the beautiful Gateway City. I'm Tom Franklin, joined by my buddy off to the west in probably more beautiful Utah, Mason, Blues Fan Reacts. No?
It's smoky here.
Oh, yeah.
All the California wildfires absolutely just ravishing my lungs and ravishing the crop, so...
It's okay. You can't breathe here in St. Louis either because the humidity is like 1,000%, and like you step out and you're just drenched. You can almost chew on the humidity here. It's ridiculous.
Immediate pneumonia every time you step outside. Yeah, okay.
and then you get in your car and blast the AC, and you get frostbite. It's
Ooh, I see. I have no idea what that's like. No clue. It is so freaking dry here. But what we do get is, because your body compensates for the dryness, the moment you sit down, your skin sticks to your seat.
Oh, yes, I've been there.
Peel it off, that's what we get. So
yeah, that's more. Not, you don't get that heat here in St. Louis, but it reminds me of Florida. Like, every time me and my dad would go down to Florida, he would always be driving a car that had leather seats, and you had to be really careful in Florida if you were getting back into a hot car, because the moment your skin touched that leather, you're right back out, and it's like. And then you sit down in it for a while, and then you can literally feel the fake, polyester leather pulling up, from your legs. It's a struggle, to say the least. By the way, Luke Whitbin, the voice of our intro song, noting that it is 75 degrees in Minnesota right now. So, you know
what, Luke, that is just wonderful. That's just wonderful. We love to hear it. We'd love to hear that while we are either A, drowning in our own sweat, or B, being stuck to our freaking car seats. I'm glad to know that it is only 75 up there in Minnesota. Who lives in Minnesota anyway?
Don't worry. It'll be like 0 degrees coming up in a few minutes, and they'll have about 10 inches of snow on the ground. So they'll be drowning
in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So, life comes at you fast. Ashley Jones checking in. Hey, Tom, what's up? Jack Sparrow.
Hey, Wendy. That's an inside joke. Ashley is Wendy. I'm Jack Sparrow. So,
yeah, and I regretfully, Ashley, I could not make it out to Guy's shindig this past Saturday at the Don Brown Chevrolet, the Fight for Hay. I checked in on YouTube a little bit. Looked like it was a good broadcast. Guy had a lot of fun, and shout out to him. I just personally couldn't make it. I was a little under the weather, and I would not have been good company. Derek says hello. How you doing, Derek? And so before we get into the show today, which I'm going to go ahead and run down the show for you right now, we have another Matthew Tkachuk to St. Louis trade proposal here to discuss, another fan proposal. And I know you're sitting there rolling your eyes because you've seen a bunch of them already, and they're all from St. Louis Blues fans. But we have one from a Calgary Flames fan. Auddie James, noted YouTuber, he had an idea this past week about how to get Matthew Tkachuk to St. Louis, but then they get a superstar in return, and no, it's not Vladimir Tarasenko. We will talk about that. He joins us here in just a little bit. We'll go ahead and cover some of those Tarasenko rumors, whether they are true or not. Jeremy Rutherford addressed some of those recently. Will Robert Thomas get offer sheeted? His contract is still to be signed, and the Blues only have $1.5 million in cap room, so what needs to happen to get him under contract? Our former power play guru, Marc Savard, goes to the OHL. He resurfaces.
Power play guru.
He spends a year with his family and then decides, you know what? I'm tired of my family. I'm going to go coach Windsor in the OHL.
No, I'm tired of the Blues and their shit power play. I'm going to go to freaking Windsor.
That's probably true. And then we got to talk about the most petty, hilarious potential transaction that I've seen in the National Hockey League in years. The Jesperi Kotkaniemi to Carolina saga, which is 10 out of 10 pettiness, and I fucking love this.
I love it.
I absolutely love it. This offseason had been pretty boring, and then all of a sudden, we all saw the tweet. The Hurricanes had offer sheeted Kotkaniemi, and then they announced it in French, which is just perfect. We'll talk about that a little bit later on here. Ashley pointing out that guys get together on Saturday was a lot of fun, but even I was only there half the time. No worries, Tom. Hope you're feeling better. I am. Also, it was really hot on Saturday, so I'm sure that was an issue. Abomination Gaming saying, "What's up, boys? Thanks for joining us here." One guy that is not joining us here for tonight's episode, you've probably noticed, is Wags. Wags, first of all, people, if you need a job, get a job. There's plenty of jobs out there, especially in the fast food industry.
Especially at Chick-fil-A.
And literally, because you people will not work. Wags is taking a break from the Toasted family, including the Toasted Tavern. The Toasted Tavern's taking a little bit of a break. I know Scott's also very busy as well. He's got like 2 or 3 jobs going now. He's back in radio. He works for Spectrum, and then he is an usher at Cardinals games. So it just got to be a little bit too much for them right now. So they're just taking a little bit of a break, waiting for things to cool down, waiting for more of you slackers to get back to work and stop living on the government dole. Just
if you depend on the government, then that is the number one way to become a communist dictatorship. If you rely on the government for your every need, get a job.
Well, I got to thank these people that don't want to work, because it helped me finally break free from radio. I am no longer with KMOX. My last day was Friday. Nothing really against KMOX themselves, more just the nature of the beast that is news talk lately. And it was just getting to me mentally, and I just needed to take a sidestep. I finally found a job at a local hotel that would take a radio guy on. So it's kind of hard for radio people to transition out of radio, because a lot of people think we just talk into a microphone. That's all we do. What other skills do you have? Oh, nothing. You're just a broadcaster. We have more skills than you think. And finally, I convinced the hotel that it was time to take me on. So, let's go ahead, and without further ado, let's bring our first guest into the fold here in Toasted Blues episode number 6, Auddie James. And from St. Louis to beautiful Canada, how's it going, Auddie?
It's going great. Just one sec. If you need a job, get a job. Okay, just want to make sure I heard that right. Wrote it down. I'm doing well. How do I find you guys today?
Doing pretty. We're doing okay. We're just trying not to sweat too much here. As I am aware, I apparently have a microphone issue. I think I have resolved them now.
Yes, you have resolved it.
Okay.
You sound like $1 million.
Sometimes StreamYard likes to decide, you know what? You don't need your professional microphone and your professional setup. The internal microphone on your laptop will do. So there we go.
Significantly better.
We are professional broadcasters here, Auddie, in case you
haven't. That's what I like to. You know what? I only like to associate with professionals anyway. So
yes, that's right. That's
kind of the criteria when I come on a show. So that's you guys can pat yourselves on the back for that one.
Well, and then you got our bribe money, right?
Yeah. That should. I think I'll check the wire transfer. I'm pretty sure it got in.
Good. Just making sure.
Western Union's a bitch sometimes, right? Honestly.
You did do the conversion. It's in Canadian, correct?
I did the conversion, yes, and I routed it through this really nice guy in Nigeria, who I'm sure will get that money to you ASAP. He seemed very willing to help. So
he emailed me last week. So if it's as prompt as his emails, then I'm sure I'll get the money as soon as possible here.
No problem. Never underestimate the friendliness of random people on the internet.
Oh,
like us. So we here in St. Louis, us Blues fans, have been kind of dreaming of Matthew Tkachuk becoming a St. Louis Blue. It's not just because we like him as a player. He grew up here in St. Louis. His father is a Blues legend, Keith Tkachuk. His number will probably be in the rafters at some point. And
he was my favorite player growing up. And then you have Matthew, who is probably just as talented as Keith is. He's got that extra little spice to his game, that extra little moxie. And Blues fans have been dreaming of buying a Matthew Tkachuk jersey in a St. Louis Blues style. So a lot of us have been working out our trade scenarios for bringing Matt Tkachuk to St. Louis. You had an interesting idea this week. You, of course, Auddie, for our audio listeners, you are a Calgary Flames YouTuber. So we wanted to give this idea because we've gotten a lot of flack from Calgary Flames fans. We have suggested possible Matthew Tkachuk trade scenarios. Apparently, there's a lot of Flames fans up there that don't want to let him go, over their dead bodies. Basically, that's kind of the mood up there. You had an interesting idea. I'm going to pop it up to you here right now from your video. The Calgary Flames. And yes, you are doing your T-posing.
That is wonderful. That's the epitome of a T-pose. I love that. Yes. It's funny because I actually screenshotted as well, and mine definitely does not look as good as yours does.
So Jack Eichel would go to the Calgary Flames. This is apparently how a Flames fan could justify getting rid of Matthew Tkachuk if Jack Eichel comes to Calgary. So you get Jack Eichel and a third from the Blues. And then the Blues get Matthew Tkachuk, and that's it. And then Buffalo gets prospect Connor Zary, who was just taken in the first round, Jan Kuznetsov, 2 first-rounders, one from Calgary, one from St. Louis, and the interesting name here, Jordan Kyrou, would go to the Buffalo Sabres in this scenario. So kind of for those that haven't seen your video, and of course we'll link to it during our chat here in the comments section.
Sure, yeah.
Explain the rationale here.
The thought process is simple from a Flames perspective. We need to get Jack Eichel at all costs. I know you guys, you might not be as in the loop in the Calgary kind of market as, obviously I am. But that's a name that's been linked to Calgary and it's been talked about through Calgary media. And, Flames fans are not giving up on this idea of Jack Eichel coming to the Calgary Flames. It's contingent on a few things, my proposal. First of all, you guys have to probably move on from Vladimir Tarasenko somehow. I know that's not going to be easy based on all reports.
Trying.
I know that's not going to be easy, but you have to, in order to make the money work, you're probably going to have to move. That's probably the odd man out. Let's be real, right? And it's known that he's being shopped, and the Blues are trying to trade him. God help them. I hope they can do it without having to retain any money. But in this scenario, it's contingent on that. So if that doesn't happen, then this trade doesn't happen at all because you guys don't have the room to bring him in financially.
Nope.
But yeah, so the idea behind it was, look, I love Matthew Tkachuk. I'll preface with, I don't really want to lose Matthew Tkachuk. I think any Flames fan is crazy if they truly think that they want to lose this player. He's a great, he's obviously great on the ice, but off the ice, he's great with the guys in the media. I've never had a bad run-in with him in my time covering this team. He's great. He's a class act, and you guys know that. So I'll preface with that. If there's any Flames fans listening by some miracle to the St. Louis podcast, I do not want the player to leave.
And if you're an Oilers fan right now, you're screaming at your phone or your computer right now because you don't think Matthew Tkachuk's a class act.
After this season, do Oilers fans actually exist, though? That's what you need to think of. Because I'm not convinced that they do anymore.
I think they're in hiding right now. They are in deep hiding.
Oh yeah, except for in your Twitter replies if you're a Flames fan. So they're out there. They're just lurking.
That's a safe space.
Yeah. So
they're all me.
Probably, yeah. Honestly, let's be real. Like, how many burner accounts you got running up on the old BFR?
Too many.
One for every team. So
36.
There you go. But yeah. So this deal, like, it's not. And I'll tell you one thing too. It's not an easy thing to try to conjure up. Obviously, we're not NHL GMs. This is the probability of this happening is pretty slim, I would think. But I think it makes sense. For every team involved. Buffalo's trying to move on from the player. The Flames have not had a number one center since Joe Nieuwendyk. We don't need to go back and talk about, how long ago that was. So as I said in the video, it's, the only way that I think the Flames can do it is if it's a 3-way trade. And I think the perfect marriage for the Flames and Buffalo is by bringing St. Louis in, sending them a player that, I'm going to assume he probably wants to be there. He grew up in St. Louis. It'd be fair to say he's, slightly biased towards the team. Look at the reaction at the All-Star game. Like the fans love him. Like
he was even skating with the Blues last week. A lot of St. Louis natives were having practice at Centene, and he was there. Brady was there.
I saw that on Twitter.
Was there.
Clayton Keller was there.
Yeah, Clayton Keller was there. So there is I think there is a connection, that a natural umbilical, I guess, that St. Louis hockey players, they just can't get St. Louis out of their system growing up, which is great, because there's a growing fraternity of St. Louisans that are playing NHL hockey right now. It's kind of been slow to build, but it's cool that a lot of them still have that at home tie.
Definitely. Yeah, no, like I said, it would be a perfect marriage. It's the three-way trade that I think makes the most sense. And in the video, I said prior to even getting into the trade, like I was fully anticipating people to completely scrutinize me in the comments. Sure. But I would say, and you know how that is, Mason. It's
of course, yes.
It's a bad place to be. But but honestly, like if you go back and you look at the comments on that video, like 97% of them are a mix between all three fan bases who think that this could, this is probably one of the more likely scenarios. A lot of Blues fans don't want to lose Kyrou, and I know that and I wouldn't want to lose Kyrou either. I think I saw a comment pop up just now saying that you'd feel bad for letting Kyrou go.
Yeah, and then there's Kyrou is pretty well liked here in St. Louis. I mean, of course,
rightfully so.
Blues fan reacts. We know your opinion on Jordan Kyrou.
Oh yes, I love Speed Demon. Speed Demon is very elite. That is a fact.
Yeah.
Right. If he gets traded, what I'll be more disappointed in is that I can never put it on a shirt anymore. That's what I'd be disappointed in. I'd hate to lose the player, but I mean, come on, that's an immediate shirt that I could sell.
Well,
put money in my pocket over Blues.
I have a blank Blues jersey that I'm waiting to send in to get a player put on the back, and I'm leaning towards Bob Plager at this point because it's his style of jersey. But I've been thinking about putting Jordan Kyrou on it, but I just know that when I do, he's going to get traded in some deal like this. So I'm not going to do that. And Ashley Jones feels like the Blues would not give up Kyrou in this deal. Personally, here's the thing. So, first of all, when I saw this trade, there's two things. There's one thing I loved about it, one thing I felt I could live with, and one thing that would probably prevent this from happening. The thing that I loved about, of course, Matthew Tkachuk coming home, but the thing that I would have to kind of bite the bullet on is losing Jordan Kyrou. Jordan Kyrou is a guy who, by the way, we have the Calgary Flames to thank for having Jordan Kyrou.
Yes, and I mentioned that in the video. Do.
For Brian Elliott,
Mr. Brian Elliott,
which, by the way, the Flames fans look back at Brian Elliott and think good things or bad things, because I've never heard a lot of positive from his time. Calgary.
Until we got Jacob Markstrom, just the revolving door in net was pretty well. It was very easy to put the blame on anyone who was in the starter's crease that night. Since Kaprizov, seeing like I said, it's literally been a revolving door. Kari Ramo, talk about Brian Elliott. Who else was in there?
Rito
Berra, Jonas Hiller. Like it's truly been a revolving
Victor
door.
Faust.
Victor, it's been bad.
Can we go back to Grant Pure, or that'd be pre-Kipper?
That pre-Kipper, but you know what I mean. It's been like we've failed to have that guy. It's always been it's pretty well been a different tandem every year. Mike Smith even, and he was borderline at best in the regular season, and somehow was the best player on the team in that run where the Flames ran away with the West. But that's for another story. But yeah, I'd say the overall consensus probably not the greatest on Brian Elliott, but that's not saying much because the overall consensus on any goaltender since Mika Kiprusoff until Jacob Markstrom has pretty well been the same. So.
Yeah, well, I knew we'd get along because Blues fans can relate to having a revolving door of goaltenders and not fully having faith in their goaltenders until, hell, I don't even know. I was going to say up until Binnington, but I feel we're back to being suspicious about Binnington as well going forward, and whether or not
we're over very
1 6 years, $6 million. No big deal. Gonna be fine. Gonna be fine.
Just do your deep breaths, deep breaths, in and
But
out.
getting back to Kyrou in this deal. Getting back into Kyrou in this deal. So I again, we all love Kyrou here in St. Louis. I will say he is still at that stage of his career where he, like for instance, this past season, he started off like a house on fire. I mean, he was absolutely, I remember he left, Alex Pietrangelo holding his jock strap on a breakaway goal one time in Vegas.
You'd love to see it.
It was a beautiful thing. You love to see it. Absolutely. We're actually not that bitter about Pietrangelo leaving. We kind of understand, but we still like seeing him get his, just desserts.
Oh, of course.
But Kyrou was probably our best forward, for the first couple weeks of the season.
Screw that, the first couple months.
Well, first couple months. And then Mason, he kind of disappeared, didn't he?
Yeah, he got too fancy is what happened. Obviously Kyrou's this electrifying player. He's quick. He's got great hands, unbelievable hands.
Yeah.
But sometimes his feet catch up with him there, and he wants to try doing, little dipsy doodles around. As Darren Pang would say, he tries to give him the old 9 of hearts all the time. And, he's just not mature enough to be pulling stuff off like that. I mean, yeah, maybe every so often it'll work out, but for the most part, like if he simplifies his game, he does well. And that's what he did so well at the first, couple months of the season, where he was arguably the best forward on the team, so it's just a matter of him simplifying his game first off, but also like relying on his instincts, because he's got a great hockey IQ. He's got great hockey instincts. He knows where to position himself. He knows where his teammates are. I mean, he has great chemistry with Thomas especially, but I've seen him on lines with David Perron and Ryan O'Reilly where he looked really good. So it's really just a matter, like I said, simplify his game, and he's one of your best players. But right now, and maybe at the beginning of next season, we might see him trying that fancy stuff, and that's ultimately going to be his downfall if he keeps that up. So.
And it felt like the league kind of figured him out a little bit. I mean, like he was I wouldn't call him a one-trick pony, but he was using his speed a lot. Basically a lot. It was a lot of guile, and I guess the league learned to kind of shut him down a little bit. So he's got to kind of figure out his strategy going forward. What did you think, Mason, of Auddie's trade idea?
I liked it. If I'm Doug Armstrong, if I'm putting myself in if I'm thinking of Doug Armstrong, I don't think Doug Armstrong says yes on that deal, just because it involves losing Jordan Kyrou.
Yeah,
I think he's, it was an absolute masterpiece drafting him in the second round, and I think he's pretty proud of that. Plus, Kyrou will just fit in with this team in the future so well. I don't see him, wanting to get rid of that just yet. Maybe, depending on how his start of the season or maybe even his full season goes, maybe he'd be more willing to move, depending, but that could shift on either side of the spectrum. That can make him either tighten the leash on him, so to speak, or, start to let it loose and see, what incoming trade offers might happen. If I'm the Blues GM, I'm saying yes. Okay, that's the big difference, is because I know Doug Armstrong is going to say no. If Doug Armstrong's fired tomorrow and replaced this weird screamy guy on the internet in the front office, I think this weird screamy guy is going to say yes to that deal, if that comes up. So I would go like that. I have, and we'll get to it in just a second, I do have a little, because Blues fans are trying to get rid of a certain player that we have. So I kind of edited the trade. Yes. Bless you. I think you need a tissue there. I think the allergies are starting to get to you again.
Yeah.
But that happens a lot when we say Tarasenko's name. It seems that's just the trigger word. But yeah, I altered your trade proposal just a little. I love your proposal, but I want to add one more sweetener to the deal, and let's see. I'm really curious to see what your opinion is on this, actually.
So the deal would be, for those that are listening to the audio version, Calgary would get Jack Eichel, they would get Jordan Kyrou, and a 2022 third-round pick from the Blues. The Sabres would get Vladimir Tarasenko, and Mason, you'll explain that here in a little bit, because I think I know why we could see Tarasenko in a Sabres uniform, believe it or not. Connor Zary, one of Klim Kostin or Scotty Perunovich, a second and a first from the Blues, and a first from Calgary. And the Blues would get Matt Tkachuk, a 2022 second from both Calgary and Buffalo, and Sabres defender Matthias Samuelsson. So, Mason, explain.
So, okay, here's my explanation, because I know that Calgary Flames fans would absolutely love Jordan Kyrou, and really the only thing that they're, adding to this whole pot is a second round pick. So that's why I know they're saying yes to that.
And it's our way of saying sorry for, giving you.
Yeah, sorry. It's ironic it's a second round pick, isn't it? But I mean, we'll let that.
We'll give you that pick back years down the road.
We're rubbing it in once again. For all we know, all these seconds are going to go to Arizona. By the way, I mean we haven't we haven't quite ruled that out yet. First up, but my main thinking, and I'm going to pull up my thing just so I can keep it up. So a lot of people in that deal, they're thinking, who the hell is Matthias Samuelsson?
I did,
right. Well, Matthias Samuelsson, or Matthias, or however
it's Matthias.
Come on the show, Matthias, and tell us how to pronounce it. But
please do.
Yeah, he is actually a defensive prospect. He was 32nd overall in the draft by Buffalo, and he's actually a really intriguing defensive prospect. He's a big guy. He is 6'4". 225 pounds. His uncle and his dad both played in the NHL, albeit not super successfully, but they did.
Samuelsson was notorious back in his day. Mm-hmm. He was a big guy. He and his brother Kjell Samuelsson they were part of the Flyers, and first of all, I love playing as actually no, I think about they're with the Penguins, and both of them were together with the Penguins. I love playing as the Penguins in NHL '94. You had Mario, you had Yager, and then you had both Samuelsson brothers with 99 checking, as their rating,
big guys.
Yeah, they were big, ugly, notorious guys, and Ulf was he was the better of the two. But continue.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about, I didn't know a lot about his family. I knew they played in the NHL, but I didn't know a lot about that. But Matthias is actually probably the Buffalo Sabres either best or second best defensive prospect. And one of the big reasons why is because he can play both the right and the left. So that makes him super valuable to this Blues team. And especially if we were to lose somebody like Perinovich to get something like this going, we'd get an extra 2 second-round picks plus this awesome defensive prospect. Obviously, you're going to have to miss on one of Kostner Perinovich, which, I mean, isn't a wonderful thing. But if it means getting better defensive depth, which, by the way, Matthias is probably fourth on the Buffalo Sabres prospect list. I mean, this guy is really, really good, and not enough people are talking about him.
Sure.
And then only having to, giving up Tarasenko for that as well, and then just Kostner Perinovich. I mean, I think that's a win for all three teams. I mean, the only person I could really see saying no is Buffalo, just because of the Tarasenko cap hit.
Yeah, but
you can factor in like the salary retention, and I don't think the Blues would mind doing that if this is what it takes to get these awesome prospects.
You still have to fit in Tkachuk under the
of
cap
course.
as well.
Well,
Right.
but Buffalo could even come out even more on top, because correct me if I'm wrong, but Tarasenko's got a no trade clause.
Right. But funny thing about that,
what is it?
It's a no trade. It's a full no trade. But the word from the Athletics' Jeremy Rutherford is that he is so fucking done with St. Louis that he is basically at the trade me anywhere at this point, mood. And I think maybe we've pissed him off just enough to convince him to go to Buffalo. I think that's where we are with Tarasenko.
That's shocking.
Well, if you want to make this a little extra spicy, why not make this a 4-team deal where Buffalo then flips Tarasenko for 50% retained?
They could do that
somewhere else, right? And then they come out on even more on top. Not to say that they wouldn't get value from keeping Tarasenko, but in the topic of not saving or not retaining salary from St. Louis, they could trade the full contract to Buffalo pretty much on the contingent on the fact
that's true.
He could waive it to go to Buffalo contingent on the fact that they're going to try to flip him pretty well immediately. It might not be a 4-team deal off the bat, but they could certainly work it out to the point where, because they have the ability to retain 50%.
Right.
And they're going to have to. But look at what Arizona's done. Look at the capital that they've brought in for taking on bad contracts, fleeced Vancouver.
Yeah.
Absolutely fleeced them for 1 year of Beagle, who the hell else did they get rid of? Beagle, friggin'
Roussel,
Eriksson, and Roussel. Yeah. Fleeced him. 1 year left on each of those deals. Come on, those guys are going to walk they're going to walk at the end of the year, and these guys are reaping the benefits for the capital that they brought in. But there's no saying Buffalo won't do the same thing, right? And that would make them ultimately they could win that trade just by acquiring assets for retaining 50% of, or maybe it's not 50% because Tarasenko's got a bit of term left, right?
2 years, I think.
2 years. So is it 3? Okay,
3.
So you
retain. It might be 3. Let me double check that, but I think you're right. But
like in that window, like it might take 3 or 4 years for Buffalo to be competitive, anyways,
2
right?
Years.
By the
3 years.
But okay, so 2 years, even better, right? 2 years, they retain 50%. They're going to be competitive in 3 to 4 years anyway with all these young up and comers that they're eventually going to draft with all these draft picks.
That's really not bad.
There's no saying they can't flip him for even more. And then by the time they're ready to become competitive, they have all this extra cap space, right? In a world where hopefully the cap goes up.
Yeah, the only slight hitch to that idea I would see is that the teams that have been reported to be interested in Tarasenko are all Eastern Conference teams.
Right.
And that includes both New York teams, especially the Islanders have been really in on Tarasenko. I wouldn't see Buffalo willing to flip him to an Islanders or the Rangers, interdivision like that. Maybe Carolina, but they're about to get Kotkaniemi, so
yeah. But does Buffalo truly care? Like, are they really going to be competitive?
Probably
to the point
not.
where flipping them to another Eastern Conference team would really hurt them that much?
Who knows?
Their owner is pretty delusional, so you're asking me to think what is Buffalo thinking here? I can't answer that for you.
That is a very loaded question. Yes, he is right.
No, you're right. No, it's true. But like it's the hypotheticals are what I love, right? Like we could see another team maybe coming in. We could maybe not see another team coming in. But I do like your revised proposal, just to bring it back.
The only hitch I would have, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the graphic of what each team gives up in BFR's proposal. So, and for our audio listeners, I'll read it out. Calgary would lose Matt Tkachuk, Connor Zary, a 2022 first and a second. Buffalo would lose Jack Eichel, a 2022 second, and Samuelson. But the Blues would lose Kyrou, Tarasenko, Perunovich, or Kostin, a first, second, and third. So basically, they're just going to look at the 2022 draft and say, "Fuck it." Although they'll get a couple seconds back. I would worry that the Blues might be giving up a little too much here. But that's just me. Once you stack it up like that, I mean, losing Kyrou and a Perunovich and a Tarasenko and a first in the deal. That return better be freaking juicy, and I don't know if it's juicy enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing too to remember is Matthew Tkachuk's qualifying offer next year is $9 million. So
yeah,
that's part of the reason why I want him included in this deal. Like I said, I love the player, and I think the world of Matthew Tkachuk. Based on last season, hopefully he's due for a bounce back. Last year was bad, especially after the puck flip incident with Jake Muzzin. That was kind of the nail in the coffin. In the players only meeting that we presumably found out was about him. But the fact of the matter is like that $9 million qualifying offer is scary based on what you saw last year. So that's one thing to keep in mind is maybe he comes to St. Louis and they work on an extension right away, which would be ideal, and you don't have to pay him that $9 million. Like especially you guys, I've had a lot of Blues fans. Well, not a lot. I don't truthfully know that many, and that's no dig. But just being in the market.
No, you're right. No, we don't know many either.
It's Calgary or Edmonton.
Well, no, we don't know many either. So you're fine.
No, it's fair, right? So anyway, but like I was saying, like some fans said, well, why don't they just go out and get him in free agency? After he's done that the deal on the QO, right?
Yeah.
But I think is there value in potentially getting him for that 8th year and knocking the AAV down a little bit? Like maybe
I think there would be, and he's a guy that I don't think even if he doesn't play fully up to his potential, he's a kind of guy that I think Blues fans will still admire, just because he's a Tkachuk. And and of course, Matt's going to give max effort, night in, night out. He's kind of, besides having the Tkachuk name, he's the kind of player that Blues fans will really grasp onto and like.
Oh yeah.
And also one positive, as Ashley Jones points out, if Buffalo trades Eichel, they can handle the full Tarasenko contract. So that's money going out. And then part of the value in trading Tarasenko to Buffalo, you don't retain a thing. Which is the big thing I think that Doug Armstrong is dealing with right now with Tarasenko and the COVID cap is you're not going to have a lot of teams that are willing to take on Tarasenko's contract fully without retention. So, but
and plus you're getting rid of Kyrie's contract. That's $2.8 million or however much he signed for,
and that will be going up. But the Blues do have some players that they need to re-ink over the next couple of years. Like Pareko's up after this year. Ryan O'Reilly will need a new contract after not this season but the following season, which can't believe that contract's come up already. I thought that that contract was going to last forever.
There goes another captain, ladies and gentlemen. There goes another one.
But you're getting one in Tkachuk, so it doesn't even matter.
That's true.
That's
true.
There's your C. There's your C.
I think O'Reilly would come. We can work out a deal with O'Reilly, but
I know it's too early to tell, but I don't think O'Reilly's coming back. I think it's too early. I don't.
Man,
knowing our track record and knowing good contracts with big expiring ones, I think Doug Armstrong's again going to let him go. I think so.
If he leaves, then the Hindenburg is truly on fire and it's currently crashing to earth. That's a good sign that this is not working out with Doug Armstrong and Craig Berube, which maybe that's another discussion we can have.
I'm just going off the history, man. It's just look at our history of captains. Look what's happened. He does not re-sign captains for some stupid fucking reason. He does not do it.
But I'm with Ashley. I don't see O'Reilly leaving.
I think so. I'll put a round of drinks at Ballpark Village. I'll put a round of drinks on that he doesn't return.
That's expensive. So this is a pretty big bet here because Ballpark Village they jack up the rates on those drinks. So it's going big time on us.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty. Well, so you've seen Auddie's trade. What do you think of it? Do you think it makes sense for the Blues? I think it makes sense for Calgary because they're giving up quite a bit in this deal. Buffalo gets a lot of youngsters and a pair of first rounders. I mean, it makes sense for them. And the Blues get Matthew Tkachuk, which, yay! That's what we all want, right?
Yes.
So I did drop in the comments Auddie's full video where he explains the trade and kind of breaks down how it affects Calgary. So please check that out. And Auddie, where else can we find you?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the YouTube channel is the primary spots. Obviously on Twitter, my handle, for those of you watching can see it, but those of you listening, it's at Auddie James on Twitter, AUDDIE. And then other than that, you can find me on the Barn Burner Hockey Podcast. We're on all the probably all the same ones you guys are on, Apple and all that fun stuff. But you can find me on there and the YouTube channel. That's pretty much all I got on the go right now. And Drumheller Dragons broadcasts if you want to hear my beautiful voice call some hockey this year.
There you go. Love it. By the way, before we started this episode, you dropped some breaking news on former St. Louis Blue legend, I meant prospect, Ty Ratty. What's going on with Ty Ratty, your friend?
From what I'm hearing, Ty has hung up the skates. He is done in the KHL. Funny enough, I didn't quite find out until I play beer league every Friday nights, and my buddy and I were walking out, and we played on the early slot, 7:30, which, by the way, for beer league hockey, 7:30 is prime.
Oh, it is a prime. Gorgeous time.
Oh my god, dude, it was gorgeous. Unreal. So we're getting off the ice, and there's some guys on the ice afterwards, and here I am sitting here looking on the ice at this guy with a Edmonton Oilers practice jersey, KHL pants, with all the ads, and I believe it was either Carolina's, because he had a cup of tea with Carolina. He played I think one game with Carolina before they sent him down, and you guys claimed him back. Which was kind of funny.
Good at that.
That was a pretty funny transaction. But yeah, it turns out it was Ty. I looked at my buddy. He's like, yeah, that's Ty, and that's how I found out that he's done playing hockey. He's taking the coaching route now, and he's coaching some local boys here in just outside of Calgary. So,
right on.
Forever a Blue.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Blues legend.
in some Blues fans' minds anyway, that thought he was going to be a legend. The KHL renaissance for Ty Ratty is over. So this will not be another Dmitry Yaskin story where he winds up back in the NHL. So
unfortunately not, my friends.
Darn.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for that breaking news. Thanks a lot for being a guest. And I would, and I'm with Mason, if I were the Blues GM and I was presented with this deal, I would do it. I would miss Jordan Kyrou, but in a deal like this, you got to give up something. And Jordan Kyrou would be the one to give up there. And who knows? I mean, I think Kyrou's going to be fine, but players like him sometimes burn out, and they kind of fizzle away. And we'll see where the future goes with him. But I think, for Tkachuk, I think a lot of Blues fans could swallow losing Jordan Kyrou.
Yeah. I would sure hope so if it means that we get Jack Eichel.
Yeah, you guys can have Jack Eichel. We've kicked tires on him, I think, but I don't think we're a real serious player for Eichel, and I'm relieved because personally, I think Eichel's a little overrated.
Yeah,
You think so?
I think he's a little overrated. I mean, granted, he
maybe a little bit.
He has been playing with Buffalo. Maybe in a different situation, he takes off, but. People put him up in the tier of McDavid and Ovechkin and that superstar level. I think he's just a notch or two below that.
Yeah. I could get behind that, but doesn't mean I don't want him any less.
Well, true.
Like I said, Joe Nieuwendyk, excuse me if I could speak properly, was our last true 1C here in Calgary. So if you want to talk about players that need to come in, a definite 1C is high. Should be high on Brad Treliving's list.
Well, yeah, it was 1C was a void the Blues had for many years, and then Ryan O'Reilly came along, and that kind of solved that. Although I will say Braden Shen was our 1C for the year before that, and he was pretty good.
Shen was pretty good, yeah.
But no, I thought
he's
O'Reilly,
fallen off a little though.
He'll be fine. But O'Reilly, I feel, solved that issue for us. So, alrighty. Well, and speaking of Tarasenko, we've talked a lot about him. Jeremy Rutherford recently came out with an article talking about some potential Tarasenko trade destinations. What's going on with him? Well, let's try to figure that out right now in period number 2. So it is almost September. Vladimir Tarasenko is still a St. Louis Blue. If you had guessed that Vladimir Tarasenko would still be a St. Louis Blue on September 1st, you would have taken a lot of people's money that would have bet against you on that. That is for sure. But for one reason or another, he's still a St. Louis Blue. And what's going on with Vladimir Tarasenko right now? Well, according to Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic, not much. And as time goes on, Mason, this is getting worrying a little bit.
I wouldn't say worrying in the aspect. Well, it depends on what worrying we're talking. Because if we're talking worrying as in, oh no, Tarasenko's going to be a Blue. Imagine how woe is me you sound when you say, oh, Tarasenko's going to start the season with the Blues. Oh God, why? Why must we have a top line winger on our team? Oh God, help us all.
Anymore. He's a second or third liner at this point, and he's going to be butthurt going into training camp.
Right. Just we sound like a bunch of whiny freaking children, and I can understand why everyone hates us. But I mean, if we're talking, the thing that I'm worried about, and I'm sure a lot of people, including you, share that sentiment. What value are we going to get out of him now? Because it's been 3 months since he said, hey, I'd kind of like a trade. And then everyone blew it into this big thing like, oh, Tarasenko asked for a trade. We're like, we kind of expected this. This is sort of something we've been preparing for.
I think it's been just 2 months, but it feels like about 4 months.
Gosh, it feels like forever. But it's like, I mean, as it keeps going on and we don't hear anything from anybody, and we know how active NHL insiders are. Heck, they freaking leaked the entire Seattle Kraken list, before the draft even happened. These guys know things,
And when something comes out, they tell us. And JR was very clear about that, when they hear stuff, they'll say it. And oftentimes that can be wrong. But, it's just a matter of, trying to sift through the bad information and the good information. And usually information is just information that you got to get out on the interweb. And it's just a whole debacle. It's been crickets from everybody all around regarding Tarasenko. And there have been like rumors from official and unofficial sources, saying, oh, Tarasenko has leaks to the New York teams. Oh, they have links to Carolina now. Oh, look, LA's in the mix now, so you just don't know who to believe anymore. And I'm sort of worried that there's probably a lot less interest in Tarasenko than people are saying there is.
Well, obviously, he's still a St. Louis Blue, and it's the end of August. I mean, I think that's pretty telling right there. I also think maybe it's a case of Doug maybe wanting the other teams to take on his full salary. Maybe he's asking for too much in return, in terms of prospects or picks or active roster players. I mean, we really just, as we have learned with Doug Armstrong, we really don't know until we know. And he does something completely out of left field on us, like Justin Falk. We just never know with him. Rutherford mentioned that he believes that Carolina was still keeping tabs on the Tarasenko situation. Of course, this is right before Carolina pulled the Kotkaniemi Uno card on us. Literally,
that's probably down the toilet then. Honestly, if you're paying 6.1.
And Cap Friendly has already slotted in Kotkaniemi on the Carolina Hurricanes, I think just to show where they would be cap-wise. And Carolina basically now has no cap room. They now have to spend about $1.5 million in LTR to fit Kotkaniemi. And their roster's full. So that's probably gone. Because we'll talk about Kotkaniemi in a little bit, but I have a suspicion Montreal is just going to let him walk.
Yep, I think so too.
I have a suspicion, but we'll get to that, and that's going to be period number 3 because that whole topic deserves.
Yep. Canes win the internet that day. But the other thing I'm thinking about when it comes to Tarasenko is, I mean, if you think about before the expansion draft, there were allegedly moves that Doug Armstrong just needed to sign on. There was that whole Boston one. It was like Jake DeBrusk, Trent Frederick, and like a first or something like that. Yeah. Now, no way you're getting that value no more. No way in hell are you getting that much.
Well, one thing
you're lucky to get half.
Rutherford did mention the idea of Anthony Beauvillier and Scott Mayfield from the Islanders in a Tarasenko deal, but apparently Lou Lamoriello is just playing way too coy right now with the amount of cap space that he does have, because Rutherford suspects that Lamoriello is re-signing Kyle Palmieri and Zach Parise, but he's not announced those deals yet, so clubs like the Blues don't know how much salary cap space he has available. So I think Lamoriello is reading the same tea leaves that us Blues fans are, in thinking that he could probably wait out this Tarasenko situation until he gets a deal that he really likes. And you know what? That's Lou Lamoriello. He's one of the smartest GMs in hockey. He is considered a deity in some corners of the hockey world. So that doesn't surprise me very much.
But here's a little PSA for every single team out there who is watching this. All the NHL GMs watching this inevitably. Whoever makes a deal for Tarasenko, you're gonna get a steal. It's going to be we are going to be fleeced in that trade, and we're at the point where Blues fans don't even care anymore.
Well, and here's how bad. So we've talked about in the past on this show, and I'm sure Blues fans everywhere have talked about, well, what if Tarasenko starts the season as a Blue? Is that bridge mendable? Well, Jeremy Rutherford says no, the relationship is not repairable. He will be traded. I usually don't like guaranteeing anything, but I feel pretty comfortable guaranteeing this one. That is how bad things are with Tarasenko. He believes it's better than 50-50 that he's moved before the season starts. And one reason he suggests that is because if Tarasenko does start the season as a Blue, he thinks the rest of the locker room will be professional about it and treat him like a teammate. But the problem is what Jeremy calls the white noise, as teams like to call it. The questions from the local media, the speculation locally and nationally. It's gonna be a distraction. That's exactly, and we're not even talking about how Tarasenko is going to handle it, which we don't really know, how he'd feel about that. Probably not very good. So
who knows?
So that's an issue. By the way, something I was thinking of bringing up with Auddie. Jeremy was asked, what about Jack Eichel for Tarasenko? And Jeremy's response to that, it wouldn't be straight up, of course, but I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility of some sort of package involving the two. I believe the Blues have shown interest in Eichel, but to my knowledge, it has never become serious between the Blues and Buffalo. So if we think that if we think Buffalo is willing to take Tarasenko, in fact, let me find that comment from earlier from Ashley Jones. If Buffalo trades Eichel, they can handle the full Tarasenko contract.
That's true.
So do you think this could happen? Tarasenko
could
for Eichel?
I think it could happen. But I kind of think Doug Armstrong's a little bit too scared to take on Jack Eichel. I think I think there's a little bit in the back of Doug Armstrong's head where he's just like, is this really going to work out to our advantage? I mean, obviously it's cool having a flashy name like Eichel, but I mean, is it really worth screwing our lineup procession? Is it really worth, like, because we're inevitably going to have to give up at least a couple prospects, a couple high draft picks. It's going to be an overpayment if we were to get rid of him, and especially if that involves Tarasenko. I mean, like I said, it's going to be a fleecing for the other team if when that inevitable trade happens, But I think me and your thoughts of Eichel coming to St. Louis, since it's first broke out, however many months ago, I think it kind of remains the same, where I don't think it's really worth it. I'd be okay with it, but I don't know if I'd like actively want it.
I'd feel better about Eichel if he didn't have this neck issue.
Yeah, me too.
And we've had some snarky Buffalo Sabres fans, chirp at me saying, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's a neck problem. It could easily be a problem for the rest of his life. That's how necks work. Neck injuries can be tricky." But then the other problem here is that Jack Eichel has 5 years remaining on his contract, and he's making $10 million for each one of those years. And the Blues.
What else is on his contract? What else?
Oh God, what else is on his contract?
No trade clause.
He doesn't have a no trade. He does not have a
what?
No trade. According to Cap Friendly. Oh wait, I take it back. He doesn't have a no trade for the 2021-22 season, but for the next 4 years, he has a no movement clause, which Doug Armstrong just loves so much.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think if anything prevents Jack Eichel for Vladimir Tarasenko, it is 4 years of no movement clause for Jack Eichel after this coming season. So I think we can put that to bed. So that's really what Jeremy Rutherford knows about Tarasenko. That's what we know. Oh, and by the way, this idea that I think Guy was talking about that in our last episode last week. The idea that, well, the Blues have all these Russians now. They have Klim Kostin, Ivan Barbashev, Pavel Buchnevich. That they're going to convince Tarasenko to stay. No, that's not going to happen. Rutherford poo-pooed that right away, noting that Kostin and Barbashev have been with the Blues organization for years. They've had no impact on Tarasenko's decision to ask for a trade. Buchnevich is not going to change that either.
If anybody had a say in Tarasenko's future in St. Louis, it's Jaden Schwartz, and he's gone. So
exactly.
That was the only player I could see having any sort of, say in what Tarasenko decides to do in the future. And now that Schwartz is gone, Tarasenko's like, oh, okay, well, goodbye. Because I mean, if along the same lines, I mean, think of all of Tarasenko's best friends: Ryan Reeves, Yori Laterra, everyone, Alex Pietrangelo, they're all gone.
Yeah,
they're gone.
Yeah.
Every time it's just a matter. It's like he's on an episode of Russian Survivor. All of his friends are getting voted off. He's feeling alone now.
He's the final survivor at this point.
He's in the top 5, and the other 4 have an alliance. At this point, he's kind of screwed here. He's getting voted out. He's not getting that $1 million.
I'm kind of surprised that Tarasenko did not end up in Seattle. I think we all were surprised how Seattle approached this draft, and that they were kind of stocking up for the future. They were kind of willing to take the L on this season at the very least. Very anti-Vegas. But he could have Tarasenko. There was an argument to be made with Tarasenko that he could have been their Marc-Andre Fleury, their
True.
star level guy this year, and then you could play him next to Jaden Schwartz on their top line. Maybe you could have eventually brought in Vince Dunn later in a trade. Who knows? I mean, who knows? I'm kind of surprised because it sounds like Jaden Schwartz had really good talks with Seattle before the draft. I mean, at least they had a framework of a deal ready to go for free agency. I'm sure Jaden pitched the idea of Tarasenko to Seattle, and having Seattle take Tarasenko. I'm kind of surprised that didn't happen just because of the connection those two had and the fact that I was kind of the mind that, hey, Seattle, they can sell some Tarasenko jerseys. He can be the face of the franchise starting out, but they went a different way. And I think I wonder if the Blues were secretly hoping that the Kraken would have taken Tarasenko, just to get that problem off their hands.
Probably not actively wishing. I don't think so. I'm sure the fans probably thought so, but if I'm management, I don't know if I'm thinking that way. I mean, no matter what, you're losing a good player, especially, how I admit it, the Blues roster, as terrible as last season was, it's still a good roster. And whoever the Blues gave up, it was going to suck.
And then, and I think Auddie kind of touched on, when we were talking about, the Tkachuk to St. Louis deal, is that a lot hinges on Tarasenko. And I think a lot of what the Blues do this offseason is still hinging on Tarasenko. Like we talked before the show. Are there really any other trades the Blues should pursue? I mean, really,
I don't know.
It's all Tarasenko at this point, right?
Right. I'm looking at our depth and I'm thinking, we could use some bottom forward depth, but that would come with the Tarasenko trade, honestly.
Yeah.
So there are players I'd like to pursue, but it's a matter of the assets going the other way.
And you don't want to put, the Blues in a situation where, they still have to fit in Robert Thomas. I mean, you don't want to jeopardize that situation either.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Thomas in just a little bit, but before we get that, another interesting Blues note from this past week, Marc Savard, who was, on the Blues coaching staff, during the Cup run, was given a lot of credit for turning around the Blues offense and the Blues power play. He leaves to spend more time with his family. Well, apparently he's had enough of his family because he's getting back into coaching with Windsor of the OHL. So, what do you think, Marc Savard, who apparently is this great offensive mind, what could he bring to a team like Windsor, Mason?
I mean, as high scoring as the OHL is, I think he's going to make it even higher. Honestly, he's going to give the goaltenders of the other team a living hell. I mean, Windsor's got some good little shooters on that team.
They do.
They got some fast guys at the back end. Marc Savard is just absolute genius when it comes to, teaching younger players, especially, people like Jordan Kyrou. I'm sure Marc Savard had a pretty big, hand in molding Jordan Kyrou the way that he was. He's very good at, talking to these younger players, really defining their game. I think Marc Savard is going to be great for him. Well, honestly,
one question I heard after the news came out that he went to Windsor is, well, why would you leave the Blues to go coach in juniors? Well, and I bring up Red
because the Blues are a fucking dumpster fire. Like what?
They're not that bad. I mean, but you would think that you would want an NHL job, but some players aren't. Some former players aren't like that. Like Red Berenson of the Blues, for instance, he probably could have coached anywhere in the NHL he wanted to. He stuck it out for decades, building the Michigan Wolverines into a powerhouse in college hockey. He obviously enjoyed coaching youngsters and kind of shaping them and molding them, into adults and, mature players. I wonder, Mason, if Marc Savard isn't the same way, because you mentioned like how influential he might have been to someone like a Jordan Kyrou, for instance. You think maybe just some coaches prefer coaching youngsters versus, your highly paid and, your Tarasenkos of the world?
Well, a lot of it comes down to ego too. I mean, you can sort of boss around the younger players a little bit. You can tell them, okay, you're scratched for this game because they really haven't developed their repertoire as a player. And then seeing the rewards of sowing the rewards of your success, coaching these players in the NHL has got to be a good feeling. When you're at the NHL, what more can you do? I mean, these players are, especially at the older age, these are the best that they're going to get. Obviously you can manipulate them how you want, manipulate probably isn't the right word there, but I mean, you've kind of toyed with them and told, had them work the game that you'd like to see them work. other than that, I mean, the players are just going to do player things. There's not a lot of off-season training you can do with them that they haven't already done themselves. It's not the only thing you can do is just put them on different line combinations and see what works, honestly. So I think there's a lot of satisfaction in being a junior coach. I mean, if you think about, Bark and Bobby Plager with the Pure Rivermen, coaching with them, those are other guys. They probably could have gotten NHL jobs wherever they wanted.
Well,
and they decided
Bark coached the
Bark did, but not Bark. Bobby didn't.
Bobby coached a year in Peoria. And they actually won the championship that year, but Bob didn't actually enjoy coaching very much, but he was willing to do it. Bark, on the other hand, was coached the Blues minor league teams. In fact, he even coached the Blues minor league team when they were in Salt Lake City. So
Golden Eagles.
A little bit of Blues history, the Golden Eagles, and he coached the youngsters, and then he was like an assistant coach during the 80s. He never actually, I remember reading Bob Plager's book on this. I don't think Barkley wanted to be a head coach at the NHL level. I think he enjoyed, being the assistant, kind of the, maybe less, more outside of the shadows, if you will. So, not everyone wants to be, John Tortorella. Who knew?
Right.
Who knew? And Dan Ferris brings up a question here, and that will transition us into period number 3. Robert Thomas, we've been talking about him a little bit. If Montreal doesn't match on Jesperi, Kotkaniemi, which yes, we're going to talk about that, just that whole thing. Do you see them going after Robert Thomas? And
how dare you, Dan?
First of all, fuck you, Dan. Second of all, I did think of that scenario earlier today where, because Montreal they had put it in pen that Kotkaniemi was going to be their second line center this year. They really don't have anyone else that really fits the mold, but yet they are facing a situation where they may not be willing to pay $6.1 million for Kotkaniemi. I think I wouldn't. Most people would agree that he's not a $6.1 million player.
Not even close, honestly.
And so to get a first and a third for him from Carolina, they may have to bite the bullet on that. So Dan brings up an interesting point. And apparently this is something that Montreal fans have been floating on Twitter as well, because Robert Thomas is one of the few restricted free agents still out there. He could get offer sheeted, and that would put the Blues in a pickle, because they only have $1.5 million in cap space right now. And if they go like $5 million on Robert Thomas, which I don't think he's a $5 million player yet.
Not yet.
I think the Blues are maybe heading for an iceberg here.
Oh, we would be so unbelievably screwed. It's not even funny. Like, seriously, Robert Thomas is the future of this team. Exactly. Robert Thomas is the future captain. He's the future, center depth. If Montreal just does this little thing, let's do it. Why not? We would be so royally screwed. It's not even funny. But I think that after this whole Carolina debacle, I feel like Marc Bergevin is pretty humbled right now. I don't think he wants to try something like that again.
And to be fair, Montreal is also up against the cap as well, which is why that's why they may let Kotkaniemi walk. But
if they're smart, they would.
But I'm going to put this request out there. Make sure this show does not get seen or heard by Marc Bergevin, because we don't want to give him. We don't exist. King Angus, if you're here, forget we said anything. Just deal with the fact you're losing Kotkaniemi, and you're not going to forward Robert Thomas, okay?
Well, Angus is on the train of let him walk, honestly. That's where he's. I think 95% of Montreal fans, smart Montreal fans, are on that train,
Okay, let's go ahead and just hop right into this aspect of it, of the whole Kotkaniemi saga. For those of you that have been watching, here we go. The Carolina Hurricanes are absolutely mad right now. They signed Tony DeAngelo this offseason. Let's not forget that. But this bolt out of lightning from the blue, from the Carolina Hurricanes, offer sheeting Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And their Twitter, which I'm scrolling through right now on the video version of this, is just, oh my God. So first, let's go to the initial one here. So August 28th, we have tendered an offer sheet to Jesperi Kotkaniemi. They had the graphic all made up and ready to go. I saw this and just my jaw dropped. I wasn't even laughing at this point. My jaw dropped. It's like, wow.
Yeah, this was just like hockey news. It's breathtaking hockey news, but at the end of the day, this is hockey news. When you first look at this tweet, I remember I first saw it when Elliot Friedman retweeted it. I was like, what? They did? What the heck?
And then they just do like an LOL to the NHL.com article about it. And that's when you kind of started seeing that this was, this is a total troll move on their part. My favorite, though, and I messaged you this way, they tweeted out in French. How many people in Carolina speak French? Probably less than 2% of the population.
That's not even half it because their fucking bio is in French too. So it's just so
exactly. On the top right here, their bio. Come to the Hurricanes de la Caroline.
I love it.
Then we knew this was a total fuck you to Montreal.
Yep, that's what we knew.
Trying to snipe Sebastian Aho. But wait, there's more. So this Uno card kind of suggested that this right back at you card there, which is nice, and then Carolina red, of course.
We were going like, what the heck is this reverse card? And they were like, oh, they're talking about Sebastian Aho, and then they tweeted this.
The $20
this broke me.
signing bonus.
I DM'd the Canes Twitter account and said, I will pay that signing bonus out of my own freaking pocket. I will do that right now. That is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, you're getting quite influential on Twitter, by the way. The LA Kings are now following you. So
yep, I'm followed by the LA Kings now. So
yeah. Signing bonus $20, which is Sebastian Aho's number, by the way. Beautiful. Then they tweeted out that their Bunch of Jerks shirt is always relevant.
I was actually in the car when this first broke out.
And then
I was in the car. I'm just going to preface this really quickly because this is what's so funny. Is because I was driving in the car. I drive from Salt Lake to Orem, which is not a fun drive. It's about 55 miles. I was in the middle of the freeway. Some guy just cut me off. I was like, what the heck was that? And my freaking phone buzzed. And I was like, what the heck is this? And it's Elliot Friedman saying, I had Siri read it out to me, and it said, Elliot Friedman retweeted, we have tendered an offer sheet to Jesperi Kotkaniemi. She butchered it really bad, but it was like Kotkaniemi or something like that. It was really, really bad. So I heard that. I was like, what the heck? I literally pulled off to the side of the road just to kind of read this for a second. And then I, resumed my way. And then I heard my phone buzz again, and it was Facebook Messenger, and it was Tom just dying at the French tweet. And it was just so funny to me.
I was absolutely side of my ribs, laughing. It was just hilarious.
I couldn't see the road in front of me. I was laughing so hard.
And they post this GIF of Kotkaniemi in a Canes uniform of him winking to cap off the night. They responded to Darren Drager by saying "we," the French yes. And then they say, I guess we made a splash, reacting to Jack Todd's article. Carolina's offer sheet to Kotkaniemi was a Bush League move. Well, it's not the first time that something like this has happened. Blues fans of the late 2000s may remember when the Blues were on the verge of losing David Backes in 2008 to the Vancouver Canucks. They made a 3-year, $7.5 million offer to David Backes, and the Blues matched. I think it was more than they wanted to pay for Backes at the time, $2.5 million per. Turned out okay. Turned out fine. I think we all loved David Backes during that era, so it was fine. About a week later, right when they made the offer sheet, the Canucks traded for Steve Bernier from the Buffalo Sabres. They gave up a second and a third round pick. Bernier was a 23-year-old youngster, looked very promising. He wasn't. He actually kind of flamed out after a few years. He was not great after he went to Vancouver. But the Blues responded a week later by offer sheeting Steve Bernier 1 year, $2.5 million. It would have been a second round pick the Blues would have had to given up had to give up to Buffalo for Bernier, which would have been a high second because the Blues were still kind of shit in that time period. But the Canucks matched. But the message was sent by the Blues. Yes. You try to offer sheet our young star, we're gonna fuck with you right back, and which is hilarious because this is the St. Louis Blues we're talking about here, a team that has the
least petty team in the entire league.
They have a very sordid history with offer sheeting players. Scott Stevens, excuse me.
Bless you.
Allergies again. Excuse me.
God, no.
Yeah. That was
an off? I actually didn't know that was an offer sheet. Okay, we did a whole episode, Wags and I did back in the Blue Notes age, talking about that deal. You can find it, wherever you're watching or listening. I said you have to scroll back a little bit, but yeah, it took like an hour and a half just to explain, the whole Scott Stevens and Brendan Shanahan saga. It's just too it was like you need to calculate to understand what was going on there. But yeah, there is a precedent for this, and I'm kind of wondering, because Dan asked, and rightfully so, if Montreal has to give up Kotkaniemi, which I honestly think they should, because he's not that good. Do they offer sheet Robert Thomas? But you kind of hit on the head, Mason. I don't know after this if anyone will be offer sheeted ever again. Yep, I think this is the last one that we'll ever see. Because this, oh my gosh, I mean, just the way that it was executed, and Kane's Twitter, whoever runs their Twitter, apparently, this is something I didn't know, but apparently a lot of social media interns for these games aren't paid. A lot of them are unpaid internships. Whatever it is, he deserves a rate. Like, put their freaking Venmo in the description. I will donate. That was the funniest thing I had seen in a very long time.
Well, you know that all too well because you're going after the Utah Grizzlies.
I am.
And that's going to be an unpaid internship. So
that is true. Imagine your boy running the Utah Grizzlies Twitter account. That would be fun.
Yeah, we'll have to get the get your Venmo out there once you get that gig, and
get my Venmo out there.
Yeah, or maybe you can just like tag it with every tweet you do for the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
And what a goal by Jones! My Venmo is at. That's look. If that's
did you like that goal? $5.
We'll attach a photo to this tweet if we raise $5 on GoFundMe for Mason's financial account.
Buy me a coffee. Buy me coffee. Buy me the gas it took to drive here.
Man. Well, if that sounds petty, we are talking about a very petty league here with the NHL. So it would only fit. You would fit in perfectly. You're right though. The Canes Twitter game is pretty solid. I think they've surpassed Vegas at this point.
Oh, Vegas is bottom tier for me. I don't like Vegas.
Really?
Oh yeah, I don't like Vegas's at all.
Because I see what you like. Like in the early days, though, I thought they were
early days. It was fine,
and they kind of hooked me into Vegas is I don't think they're my second team, but I like them better than most teams.
They fell off quick
up until this season, anyway. That kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I really like what they were doing on social media early on, and then you're kind of right though. It feels like they've leveled off and it became
forced. It seems like there's some bad tasted memes like
natural
when
Revo started.
Well, when Ryan Reeves hit a guy earlier in the year and the guy was down with an injury, the guy said the Twitter guy said misconducts and stuff, and it was like, wait, really? Come on, show a little class. I mean, but you're right. Yeah, Canes, and then it was the complete opposite with the Canes because I thought the Canes was annoying at first, and then it's slowly starting to grow me, and this just culminates that the Canes are my favorite Twitter account on the entire site. So,
and I gotta say, the Kraken have not hooked me yet with their Twitter account.
They're boring.
They're very plain and boring, which
boring.
It should be exciting.
It's worse than Toronto's. Toronto's is just drab.
Well, you have to have a certain amount of self-loathing to run that Toronto Maple Leafs Twitter account. I mean,
sure, that sounds like a bad time, honestly. Looking at the mentions, that sounds like a bad time.
Who do you think has it worse, the Maple Leafs Twitter guy or the Oilers Twitter guy?
Maple Leafs. No, I don't think it's close.
You're probably right. Yeah, I don't think Edmonton's reached Toronto levels of loathing yet.
You could not pay me enough money to run Toronto's Twitter account. You couldn't. Just those mentions Just, oh man. I mean, I remember after every single loss last year, just everyone just overreacting and everyone saying joke league and a bunch of Jimmy Chen wannabes in the comments. It just wasn't even funny at that point. It just sounds like a boring job and you can't like clap back at them. That's what's nice about running my company's Twitter account is I can clap back at people.
That's so nice. That's one reason why I left KMOX is because we couldn't clap back at people like that. It just the problem is we'd be clapping back at about most of our base just for saying stupid crap, and there was so many times where someone would chime in and I would have like the perfect response typed out. But then I'd have to, I can't do that, and start backspacing grudgingly and, just hating my life a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone that works in news for a TV stations or a news talk radio station, social media accounts, I feel for you right now. I really, really do, because there is so much stupid on those accounts nowadays. It's not even funny. Mental health is important, people.
Yes.
Seriously, it's not worth it, guys. You can find something else to do. I did. Took me a while, but I did. So, and speaking of which, we'll hopefully be back with some more Toasted Blues. It's still the off season, so it's we haven't had much to talk about lately. Now we do. Thank you, Auddie James, for giving us a nice topic to talk about, and thank you, Carolina Hurricanes, for being petty as fuck,
for being wonderful, for being just the best group, but best bunch of jerks. I need a shirt after this. Honestly, I need a shirt.
I may buy one too. In fact,
I need a shirt.
We just showed the link. They're still for sale. So yeah, I think let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's show up.
And by the way, I've bought twice from their pro shop, their jerseys, good quality numbering, quality stitching. I've never had an issue. I got my Chris Pronger Whalers reverse retro from them. Very solid. So
awesome.
Not bad, Carolina. Not bad. Not bad. Alrighty, guys. That's going to do it for this episode of Toasted Blues. Like I said, the Toasted Tavern's taking a little bit of a break for now because you people won't work in fast food anymore. So
work at Chick-fil-A and the episodes will come back. It's very simple.
Yes. If you are in the greater St. Peters area in St. Charles County and you are in need of some extra money, consider working for the Chick-fil-A there. Wags would certainly appreciate it because...
What's the pay rate anyway?
Probably pretty good. I
think pretty good. I'm assuming close to 13, 14, 15.
Oh no, Chick-fil-A is probably 16. I think
Chick-fil-A is that high in St. Louis, really?
Yeah, I think at this point they're desperate for employees, and it's in a good area, and Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A takes care of their people.
Everyone loves Chick-fil-A.
They've taken care of Wags pretty well, except for just the fact that no one will work for them. So,
although they got my sandwich order wrong 3 times the other day.
Really?
What 3 times? Well, I first came in and I wanted I do my usual chicken sandwich, no pickles, Colby Jack cheese. And I got it back and it was pepper jack. I was like, oh, I like pepper jack, but I'm not in the pepper jack mood today. So I take it back. It's like, okay, we'll rectify it. They gave me cheddar the next time.
Cheddar?
I was like, huh? Why?
That's not Colby.
So I brought it back. I took a bite because I had never tried it with cheddar jack. I took a bite. Oh, that was not a good combination. So I took it back the second time and they were super apologetic. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll make sure it's Colby Jack this time. And they did, but there were pickles on it. And I was like, oh my gosh.
The nerve.
So I was like, okay, you know what? Whatever. I just took the pickles off and ate it because I really did. I'm too socially awkward to go back up and ask for it a third time. It took all my courage to come up the first 2 times, but yeah, I grinned and bear it, albeit I was frowning the whole time. I was like, Chick-fil-A, chicken wrong.
Well, first of all, I had this conversation with someone today. I did a SIUE soccer game, and I like pickles when they're not on sandwiches. Like I have no problem, going into my fridge and just grabbing a spear and just, chowing down on it. But on a sandwich or a burger, I feel it takes too much away from the burger itself. It doesn't accentuate it very well. But also, I always ask for no pickles on my food because when you go to fast food places and if you tell them no pickles, that guarantees your burger's made fresh. Or your sandwich is made fresh because they have to custom make it. You're not getting one that's sitting under a heat lamp for like 10 or 15 minutes. So pro tip, always ask for something different. Like in your case, if you just ask for a Colby Jack, they probably would make it custom for you.
They do. And it's great.
Yeah, don't just take the base burger, change it up, because that way you'll get it fresh. So
Yes.
as fresh as
Life hacks.
as fresh as the Canes trolling the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, yes.
Although they might end up with a overpaid young center in that deal. So
That's an expensive sandwich.
that is an expensive payback. Definitely. But we'll see how it works out. But anyway, that's going to do it for our Toasted Blues. We'll be back at some point, probably the next couple weeks, just to check in, say hi. Maybe Tarasenko will finally be traded. We've been saying that for the last few episodes now, so it hasn't happened yet. I probably jinxed it again.
Yep. There we go. There's another 30 days with no Tarasenko trade. Thanks, Tom.
It's all my fault. All my fault. I'm Tom Franklin. He's Mason. And remember, guys, always play to the whistle.
For new episodes, merchandise, and behind-the-scenes content, be sure to visit ToastedSTL.com or follow us on Twitter at Toasted St. Louis. I'm the voice of the Blues, Tom Calhoun. Let's get toasted!